Welcome to this Killick Explains video, and welcome to part 2 of what I'm calling Tim's top career tips. And again, a reminder for those people who missed part 1, which is now available. Basically, this is answering the question I get asked by lots of young people who are at the start of their careers or maybe haven't started yet, colleagues working here, working elsewhere, people who are at sort of pivot points, could be as late as their 50s and wondering what to do next. And the reason I am qualified to say some of this stuff, if you like, is my career's been 30 plus years now. Lots of variety, 4 big pivot points, bigger than a lot of people make in financial services. Lots of risk at certain points and some sweat. Fortunately, all the risks I've taken have paid off. All right. So, quick reminder for those people who missed part 1. My career divides into 4 quarters, very roughly speaking. Skating over a bit of detail. Chartered accountancy is where it all started, and I give that a 5 out of 10 for a combination of enjoyment and ability. So that's why I didn't stay there. All right, I moved on to city teaching, consultancy, training consultancy, to give it the posh name if you like. Did that for about a decade. That got me up to about a 7 out of 10, enjoyment and ability. Then I made a fairly radical switch, which not everyone gets to make. I went to eventually run a national financial magazine, the most successful one at the time. That was an 8 out of 10. Where I am now, been for the last 10 years at Killick, head of education, I would actually give, insofar as any job ever gets one, a 10 out of 10. And if you wonder what I mean by that last comment, as a friend of mine said, there's a reason they pay to turn up. That's employment for you, but fundamentally, it's as close to a 10 as most people will get. So, that score, as a reminder, was a combination of enjoyment and ability. So to hit 10, crikey, that's a high watermark, you need to be able to combine both together. Beware of jobs that are below about a 5, and certainly anything we are thinking, this isn't even a 1. So how do you structure life to get nearer to a 10? 5 rules of thumb in my last video, 5 coming up right now to give the set of 10 over 2 videos if you like. So, number 1 in this video, or number 6 if you watch part 1, is don't be afraid of bending the rules sometimes. Now, what I mean by that is I was fortunate enough to come across an entrepreneur running a family-owned firm, Paul Killick. At the time, education in wealth management was not a term that was well understood. All right, people were like, is that the same as training? Education is externally facing. It's trying to build trust and confidence amongst clients, prospects of all ages and abilities. Okay, training is the kind of internal side of that, if you like. But the concept wasn't well known 10 years ago, but it is much better known now. As I mentioned in part 1, I went to a conference recently, digitalization of wealth management, and one of the key buzzwords was education. It's really, really important. And Paul Killick recognized that a long way before many other people. Point 2, or 7, if you watch part 1, talk, listen, read, and learn. All right, what I essentially do, whether in written form, editing, presenting, press articles, guides like the one next to me, is I make the complex reasonably simple to understand. That is tough. All right, people who are good at simplifying difficult stuff have to know the difficult stuff pretty well, in my opinion, or it's just not credible. All right. Now, how do you master the difficult stuff? I mean, my career's gone through financial services, banking, wealth management, into national magazine publishing, from chartered accountancy. So how do you build the ability to present things clearly and concisely, which is of course gone no matter what your job these days? And the answer is tap people's knowledge. When you meet people, think, what can I learn from you? Be a little bit selfish. Always look to add knowledge, add skills, add people to your network. Next, patience. Now, patience is about saying what you don't want to do is sort of take a scattergun approach, skitter across a lot of roles, looking like someone who can't settle anywhere. You've got to invest in a long-term career like you invest in the stock market, if you like. In other words, skills and knowledge compound over time. Come back to that point in just a moment. And there is a degree of judgment, weighing up opportunities. Some people say, I never got any opportunities to pivot like you, Tim. It may be that you did, but you couldn't see them for what they were, and or you couldn't take them at the time. Perhaps you were trapped financially. That's unfortunate, but it does happen a lot. Perhaps the opportunity didn't look as good as with hindsight you now realize it might have been. Perhaps you were afraid. A lot of people don't want to pivot in their careers. They're "you're better the devil that I know" kind of folk. So, skills next. Skills compound. I mentioned this before, like investments do over the long term. All right, I wasn't born with all the skills that I now have, some of which I'm using here, some of which I use to put together the quarterly magazine Confidant, some of which I use for these guides, some of which I use for press, seminars, webinars, and the rest of it. Practice, practice, practice is the key. Whether or not I make Killick Explains look reasonably effortless, perhaps I do, I wasn't born able to do it. It's taken years and years, hundreds of videos to get to a point where I can sort of sit and talk like this. All right. So whilst some of this video is about taking risks, identifying opportunities, that is not at the expense of then not getting your head down and recognizing the sheer amount of effort that goes into a successful job. And that brings me to my fifth point in this second video, or point 10, which is that persistence and discipline are what turn talent into success. Yes, it turns out I'm not bad at presenting. Yes, I'm quite good at writing and editing. And I did get 10 to 15% of that, not for free, but it's like people who can read music at sight or speak languages. I got a little bit of a head start in some ways, but that's not enough. You've got to build on that. As I said, hundreds of videos later, thousands of pages written or edited later, 40, 50 Confidant magazines put together. That is ultimately what makes you successful. Not sort of sitting back and going, well, I'll just lean on my talent for 30 years and hope that'll just carry me through my career. There are one or two people who get away with that, but they're increasingly rare, especially in today's market where things like AI are changing the nature of work and the skills needed all the time. Okay, so there you have it. Top 10, 5 in this video, 5 in part 1 if you missed it. For any further information around some of the topics I've been discussing, killick.com/resources is a good place to go. That's the new website. And there you'll find other Killick Explains videos. You'll find Confidant, our quarterly flagship magazine, and you'll find our how-to guides recently updated for 2024-25. So grab those as and if you want to.